Hello everyone, this is Jason from Primetime Aquatics, and in this video I wanted to talk about the pros and cons, the advantages and disadvantages of a 5.5 gallon fish tank. We did a video like this recently on the 2.5 gallon, but now let's step up the size and see what the 5.5 gallon fish tank is all about in case you're interested in buying one or setting one up, so stay tuned. So one of the things that we're noticing are more and more people want to get into smaller fish tanks, nano fish tanks. These fish tanks generally range from around 2 gallons, maybe up to 10 gallons or so, that generally house small fish or very few fish. They're often planted, they look great. So the 5.5 gallon fish tank is a really popular option because it's a standard size. Today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of having a 5.5 gallon fish tank. So why is the 5.5 gallon fish tank so popular? I think especially for a new fish keeper, they see a tank that might be easy to maintain and you can put it just about anywhere. And it is true, you can put it just about anywhere. A 5.5 gallon fish tank is going to be right around 50 to 60 pounds, so any piece of furniture that can hold that kind of weight is probably okay. So maybe a desk or a dresser. Now, the other potential advantage is the cost. Generally speaking, a smaller fish tank is going to cost less than a larger fish tank in terms of getting the equipment and the decorations and the fish itself. As we're going to see, however, the cost may be a little bit deceiving. A 5.5 gallon fish tank is a small tank, and so the equipment is going to be smaller. But what's interesting is that sometimes you can actually get a tank slightly larger, a 10 gallon, for less money. So when you think about the 5.5 gallon fish tank, you're going to need sand or gravel and plants, whether they're fake or real, but you're going to need a filter, probably a heater and a light, and those costs can tend to add up. What's interesting is that often you can go out and buy a 10 gallon fish tank, so you're getting almost twice the volume, and possibly pay less in the long run because often those 10 gallon fish tanks come in aquarium kits. Now, we've done videos on aquarium kits before and whether or not they're worth it. I will put that in the upper right hand corner as well as in the description below if you want to consider that a little bit more thoroughly. Bottom line is the 5.5 gallon fish tank, while generally speaking it is going to be relatively low cost to get it started, a slightly larger fish tank might actually be less to get it up and running. Now, certainly one of the advantages when it comes to a 5.5 gallon fish tank is maintenance. Maintenance isn't going to take as long as it would on a larger tank. Often people can use a cup or a pitcher to do their water changes. It's relatively easy to clean off the substrate and the plants and to change out the filter media. It doesn't take very long compared to a larger tank. However, one of the things that you have to consider, and this might be one of the biggest disadvantages to a tank this small, is water quality. While it might be easy to do the general maintenance, water quality and water parameters tend to fluctuate more in a smaller tank. I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a betta in a 5.5 gallon fish tank, a perfectly acceptable inhabitant. That betta is going to consume a certain amount of food and produce a certain amount of waste in 5.5 gallons of water. What's going to happen over time is as that betta consumes the food, produces the waste, that's eventually going to lead to an accumulation of nitrates. A high enough accumulation of nitrates will potentially lead to a decrease in pH. If the tank is planted, those plants may use the minerals in the water a little bit faster. And so what that means, if you've got a 5.5 gallon tank and you wait a couple weeks to do a water change, you may start to see fluctuations in pH, in water hardness, in nitrate levels, which is a waste product. That may fluctuate a little bit more than in a larger tank. If you had a betta, let's say in a 20 gallon, and that was the only fish in that tank, the amount of waste it produces in the same period of time isn't going to impact the water parameters as much. And the bottom line is this: if you're looking at a smaller tank, a nano fish tank, it's probably better to do smaller water changes more frequently to ensure that the water parameters are maintaining consistency. One of the other things to consider about a 5.5 gallon fish tank are the stocking options. Now, we did a video on stocking options for a 5.5 gallon fish tank. I'll put that in the upper right hand corner as well as in the description below if you want some ideas. But the bottom line is there aren't that many options with a tank that small. Obviously, the larger the tank you have, the more potential stocking options there are. And with a 5.5 gallon tank, we're still really close to the minimum of what we would use to keep live fish in long term. One of the best things about a 5.5 gallon fish tank are for those people who are thinking about breeding or maybe even quarantine. A 5.5 gallon fish tank is a great place to put brand new fish fry and allow them to grow up, so not having to search a larger tank looking for food. It also makes a really great quarantine tank for properly sized fish, because if they get sick, you don't have to add as many meds as, let's say, a 20 gallon or a 40 gallon. So a 5.5 gallon might make a great quarantine tank or a hospital tank. In my opinion, a 5.5 gallon fish tank is a great size tank, but often it's best for somebody who has a little bit of experience keeping fish, who understands water parameters, who understands the nitrogen cycle. It makes it a little bit easier to manage water parameters consistently. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, share, subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.